Welcome, everyone, to What the Force, and welcome back to Once Upon a Time in the Outer Rim, where we are covering Mandalorian Season 3. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host, and with me, once again, is my good friend and yours, Alex Kane.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
Welcome back, Alex.
We got to take some detours with Obi-Wan and Andor for a while, and now we're back in the land of the Mandalorians.
Well, yeah. I mean, we did cover Book of Boba Fett, which in some ways was sort of required watching for this season, just to set you up for success, which is okay.
Yeah, we had like 3 shows last year.
Yeah, there was a lot. Maybe they need to slow it down just a titch, just for me, just as a favor for me.
Yeah.
This show covers Star Wars and the Mandalorian cinematic universe from a mythical fairy tale, sometimes Western referenced deep dive perspective. So what does that mean? Well, we use Joseph Campbell, Jungian psychology, talk about symbolism and theme and archetypes, as well as other mythic concepts to really talk about the show and deep dive into perhaps a little bit more about what it's saying in those layers underneath. Just a reminder to like and subscribe on your podcast app of choice or on YouTube. It helps you keep up to date with all of the episodes that will be coming out. And just to announce, I now have merch. There will be a link in the liner notes if you're interested in any of those shirts or other things that you can get with some really sweet designs on them. Also, if you're interested in supporting the show, feel free to look for the link for Ko-fi, or of course, Patreon is a great way to support the show. I often put other fun stuff out there and try to release the episodes just a little bit earlier on there. All right, let's dig into some general pre-thoughts. I've been thinking a lot about this since I noticed in this first episode that Brendan Wayne and Lateef Crowder were credited. So those are the body doubles, the Mandalorian in suit form for Pedro Pascal, and they were actually credited this episode, which I think is just such a huge improvement and really, really great. So I'm very proud of the show for finally doing that. But then again, like, they haven't credited other people in the past.
Sure. Yeah.
And this kind of gets me to the thought that, like, critique is good. You know, like, we're not meaning it in a mean way if we critique something about the show. We're just trying to hope that somebody out there listens and it becomes a thing enough that maybe they improve it in the future. And so that's for, sometimes topics are insensitive, sometimes they don't hit right, or even just as simply giving people that spend 90% of the time on screen their credit. Even if they're covered with a mask and armor. That also being said, we've also critiqued in the past the lack of using names in the shows, and everybody used names.
Yeah.
This episode.
It stood out. Yeah.
Did it stand out to you?
Definitely.
It's like everybody was like, okay, this is for Marie-Claire. Marie-Claire, you better notice that everybody's using their names. It's like a thing. I have literally been razzing on Jon Favreau for years about this.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you, John. You had some other thoughts as well.
Yeah. I mean, it was, coming off of Andor, I think a lot of people wanted to have kind of a, strong reaction to this one way or the other. And, I thought that it was a really strong season opener.
I don't think that it was a complete story, though. It felt like it was like a part one of an episode arc, or, leaving a lot open, but like resettling us where we are.
Yeah, very much like the calm before the storm.
Yeah.
It's sort of like nice to be back in that world, see Carl Weathers and, They got a new composer credited, Joseph Shirley, which was interesting. So he
did work on Book of Boba Fett as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right. Yeah, so Creed 3 is like his new thing that just came out like tonight, I think. And then he did like Jackass Forever. But so Ludwig Göransson is very busy now doing all kinds of different things. So I think he did Wakanda Forever, and there's a new documentary out about that music. So Dean Cundy shot this premiere episode. My favorite cinematographer. He did that Book of Boba episode that we raved about, episode 2 with the train. He did.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Great episode. So yeah, he was the one with the camera for that. And I think he did one or two others maybe. And he's sort of famous for Halloween, Escape from New York, and Back to the Future. And it's kind of interesting that, you have this stagecraft technology that Lucasfilm is sort of loaning out to everybody now, the volume. It's sort of become very important for like a lot of reasons. Like it's just sort of it's practical.
The most beautiful
saving.
episode of Willow was shot in the stagecraft volume.
Is that like episode 5 you're
7.
talking about? 7. Oh, okay. I can't remember what the numbers were. Yeah, but I remember
Beyond the Shattered Sea, and it was just like a gorgeous episode.
It's like an ocean of purple stars and stuff. Yeah. It was so gorgeous. Yeah, and like kind of the dominant thinking is that like Greg Fraser, who shot the Batman and has worked on like Rogue One, he was a cinematographer for Rogue One, I guess is like his other main thing. He's sort of like really good at the volume, so it seems like maybe Dean Cundey is doing Star Wars now to kind of fill those shoes and be like, okay, we need like another guy who's like a traditional cinematographer who like knows the nuts and bolts of making beautiful images and like, getting them to tinker with stagecraft and kind of like, consulting on it, but getting like, credits on Star Wars shows at the same time. Like
fleshing it out a little bit so it feels like bigger space too. That's always the secret with green screen is can you make it feel like it's not just green screen, and that's the key.
I didn't watch this episode with an eye toward like, okay, what's like the volume and what's not, but like it did, whatever that means. If it was like largely shot in the volume, like it looks damned impressive. So that's good. Like I'm glad if they're sticking to that and improving the technology and getting experts to play with it more and more, like more power to them. But yeah, it's like mostly a visual episode, just kind of setting the scene. But
it's like resettling us back into the Mandalorian world. It feels like they definitely like set the stage for the season. It does feel like, like the premiere, the people that went to the premiere got to see 2 episodes. It does feel like maybe we needed both episodes.
Yeah, they did that with like Obi-Wan and it would have been nice.
Willow had 2 episodes premiere. Yeah. I don't know. It
would have been nice.
Would have been nice, yeah. But I understand, wanting to stretch it out and do what they did. There's some thematic elements I just kind of want to remind people of because it has been a little bit of time since we've touched base in the Mandalorian universe. Over a year since Book of Boba Fett. There's a large theme of the Mandalorian not only meaning Din Djarin as an individual, the micro universe, him and Grogu working through their things together, but the Mandalorian meaning plural, right? The people, all of these disparate types of people. And throughout the episode, we are constantly reminded that the Mandalorian is more than just Din Djarin and what he cares about, right? So that's really, really important. And the ties actually quite well into another thematic element that we've talked about since the start of the show, that Din Djarin is almost filling this role, and so are the other Mandalorians, of almost a direct parallel to Arthurian Round Table Knights. And this is like the pre-time before Arthur collected all the knights together to build Camelot, right? It really gives that vibe. They all kind of live by different codes. What happens if you break your code of honor, right? Your creed. Mandalorian actually rides around on a space horse or like a motorcycle. In fact, I feel like the N1 Starfighter is starting to make more and more motorcycle-ish noises. Okay. and that's very like errant knight of him. And that is repeated throughout this episode too, in different ways. And it, this is very highly tied to the Grail quest. So in this universe, what is the Grail? Well, it's the magical child. It's Grogu. He is the elixir of the story. He brings the healing to the different lands that he visits with his protector, Din Djarin. Okay, what is the elixir of the story? Well, it's love and compassion, right? And also he represents the future because he is a child. Great stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely cool. This all ties into, wanting masculinity to be more nurturing and to nurture a better future. Great stuff. But I think it's important to preset expectations, because this has been a thematic element that has been consistent through both seasons and now this episode.
Yep. A lot of emphasis placed on the importance of the armor, and then also the dark saber was the big thing in season 2, but that was 2020. That was a while ago.
Well, and it's brought up again, and it's this unifying symbol, so very much like Excalibur.
Yeah,
but
100%.
I don't know 100% if it's going to be Din's in the end. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know. He's certainly reluctant to even own it seems.
Yeah.
So we will see.
Yeah, it's that funny thing about somebody who would make a good king doesn't want to be a king. It's kind of the cliche, and
the line,
he fits that.
Most reluctant who will serve.
Yeah.
Any other thematic thoughts you have before we
about the overarching episode?
Yeah. Well, and also the show itself, just to settle us back into the Mandalorian world.
Yeah, it's a nice bit of resetting the status quo, because they did do some important things in Book of Boba Fett, and it's been a long time since season 2, and so it's almost like we're back in season 1 in some meaningful ways.
I felt that regression as well.
It was a big important thing that a bunch of his people were either scattered or lost or killed. And we sort of open with a young man of 12 or 13, and all these Mandalorians who, sort of serve the armorer or are with the armorer, who Mando was originally. And so it's this community has healed a little. It's got some numbers, and it's sort of business as usual. And Mando, he has Grogu, but he's still going back home.
What does the fact that they're kind of in a desert, in a cave?
Oh, interesting.
And it's literally the same old again and again.
Mm-hmm.
She's literally in a cave, so she's in the underworld, and she is making a way to trap them in a period of I would even call it containment.
Oh, okay. The helmet symbolism.
Yeah. What do you think about that? What does it say to you?
I think we've talked about the armorer as sort of a dark goddess type figure.
Yeah.
We haven't seen her face. She is basically speaks in scripture, the equivalent of,
It's very mythological, archetypical speech, it's very this is the way, this is what we must do, she doesn't, and nor does she show or just displays of empathy or compassion. There's a in my opinion, there's a socialization of masculinity that the armor and the mask is protective, obviously, but what is it protecting people from?
Oh, the squishy parts, the emotion, the eyes, and the soul, and all that.
the soul, the growth, the character growth. The moments that we have had that have been the most touching, of course, have been when Din is chosen to take the helmet off.
Yeah.
Right? And connect with Grogu, or he had to take the helmet off to be healed, or he had to take the helmet off to protect Grogu, or to find out the next thing, right? So those moments are always incredibly powerful when they happen. But in some ways, when you're working towards transcendence, and transcendence being that you're integrating disparate aspects of yourself, there's going to be a period of time where you're kind of an egg.
Yeah.
Right? You're in an egg-like shape. You have a hard exterior, and you are being contained and essentially being ready to be reborn. And it feels like there's a connection to, thematically, what has happened to Mandalore, being that the entire surface is made of glass. And all of these Mandalorians that will not allow themselves to build emotional connections and grow.
Yeah, the second episode of the show is called The Egg, and that the glass imagery is interesting. I don't know, it makes me think of a chrysalis, there's this shell around Mandalore, but it's temporary maybe. And the thing you said about regressing and suppressing the soul, that comes up again later in the episode, which is fun. Like he's not too subtle about that.
No, I feel like these symbols are very, very on the nose. Like people, I think, get very confused because of Din himself saying what he wants versus maybe what we know he needs, right? So there's a little bit of confusion, I think, in some people, right? Because although it's interesting, I notice people don't chant "This is the way" as much anymore. Like they don't like that. Like it's not something that you see on Twitter.
Oh, like fans. Yeah, fans are really tired of that, I think, just because it's like, yeah, like we need a new thing or something. But
yeah, or maybe they start to recognize that maybe this isn't the way.
Yeah.
Right? There's kind of something in that too.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if somebody was I don't know, like a really big fan of like Darth Vader or Kylo Ren, but was like really against like Anakin Skywalker and like the Ben Solo redemption act or whatever. No, he's evil.
I'm sure there's people that are out there.
There's definitely are. Yeah.
But I think that it's important because it certainly feels like a purposeful choice to socialize mostly masculine looking people to not have emotions. Mm-hmm. That's very symbolic.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
No, you're not allowed to connect with people and you're not allowed to see people's faces and you're not allowed to have genuine like eye to eye, soul to soul connections. Okay, lady. The armor is on my grr list.
Yeah.
We see, this young man. How old would you say he was? Like 12, maybe?
I wanted to say 12 to 13, but it's hard to tell, I guess.
The Star Wars age.
Yeah.
Interesting.
In Star Wars, it's sort of like a 0 to 5 thing. You never really know. Like it could be a range of years.
George said 12 recently, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she gives him the oath, and oaths are, of course, tied to knighthood. Oftentimes, knights are bathed before they take their oaths because they want to be cleansed of like their past and to take on the oaths clearly, and that is the only thing in their heart. So it felt very knightly as well in that aspect. And it's almost like these are like remnants from like a knight clan or like something from the past. And then she puts the helmet on this kid after he completes his oath, and she has this like cup and she's about to dip it in the water and about to pour it over him, which is maybe one of the most Christian things we've seen in Mandalorian to date.
Yeah, I think
so. A baptism.
Yeah, I think so.
Half in the water, of course, being like a birth. There's certainly an aspect of death and rebirth, this being an initiation of sorts into a new way of life. And we always enter into an initiation in this kind of liminality. So like the water is very important. There's an aspect of holiness, like it's very ceremonial. The whole community's there, etc.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it is not to be. Why? Because of the giant beast attack.
Yeah.
What did you think of this?
It's sort of like just the realities of the world that they live in crashing through and sort of complicating their like illusions, right? Is kind of how I took it. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that Jon Favreau has a pretty positive, like sort of regard for religion and ritual. Like, I mean, that's sort of what I get from the show. But then you have sort of like the material world, you have, like all the problems we have in our world. And so to me, this giant beast is just sort of like a reminder of that. Like, the armorer's creed is very inflexible.
Yeah. And like people would view an interruption in a ceremony like this, like say somebody was about to be crowned king or knighted, an interruption like this to be prophetic.
Yeah. Like an omen. Like
it's an omen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so this symbolizes something. So we have there is actually an alligator snapping turtle that actually exists in fresh water that looks like basically kind of like this, but much smaller. But it is sort of like a crocodile turtle in a way.
Yep.
And of course, turtles represent longevity, healing, and transformation. And crocodiles also represent wisdom and sort of keepers of all knowledge. And so this is like they're being attacked by the fact that they're not growing.
Yeah, and like turtles, don't the turtle, like they keep their shell for life, right?
For
Like,
life,
I think, yeah.
Yeah. And like it's dangerous for these Mandalorians to not grow. It's interesting. There's crocodiles themselves also are a symbol of renewal and growth. And when you see them, it's a time to integrate changes into your life. So this group is obviously not changing. They're not transforming. They're stuck in their shells. Anytime you see armor on screen, armor with a mask specifically, people are stuck in an underworld case, basically. It's Vader is in a walking coffin. Yeah. You know, Boba Fett was kind of stuck as this death dealer mercenary. It certainly symbolizes a halt in growth.
Yeah.
And
the stormtroopers always look kind of like just skeletons.
Skeletons, yeah, like stuck in the underworld, right? And this crocodile turtle is there to remind them transformation's coming for you. And Mando shows up. It was like he was waiting for his chance to be a hero. It's interesting.
Yeah, his timing was definitely a little theatrical. He was like, I'm gonna, show my value here.
I'm useful. Yeah. And he absolutely shows that he has skills and access to things that the rest of the Mandalorians don't have in this group, right?
Mm-hmm.
He shows them that he has alternative ways of acting they don't have. Because it's like 20 against the turtle, and the turtle's like, nah.
Yeah. It's very much like we must dominate nature because there's crocodiles in our church. And then, he basically just, the ship, stops it pretty quickly, right? So
pretty quickly. And it's sort of the difference between foot soldiers and a knight with a horse.
Oh, a horse. Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah.
Right? With the lance, right? They were always very dangerous. A horse made you very, very powerful. And none of these knights have horses.
And to me, like this young kid getting sort of baptized and getting his blue painted helmet and all that, and sort of swearing the oath to the creed, he kind of reminds us that like that whole foundling concept of like where Din comes from, like this idea that he was sort of adopted into this community as like a, somebody orphaned by war. And then, so it reminds us like why this community that sort of shuns him and calls him an apostate, like why he thinks they're still important, despite having, grief and Grogu, and grief's a fun name.
Yeah.
But anyway, all these, people, and he still wants to go back there because he is grateful for kind of, who they made him, unlike Vader, who is less grateful for who Obi-Wan made him, I guess, by contrast in the recent Obi-Wan show.
To be fair, he lost 3 limbs.
Yeah.
Had already, lost the other one. So
yeah, didn't look like that was a comfortable thing that happened on Mustafar.
No. But surprisingly, the armor is not thankful to him.
Oh, right. Yeah. He had to have it replaced like the minute he ventured off in chapter 2, I guess.
Oh no, I meant like just that she's not thankful for him saving them. She doesn't say thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of like I don't know, in like a crime movie or something, where like I don't know. I think of like the Fast and the Furious, where Paul Walker like protects Vin Diesel from the cops, and he's like, I guess we're straight now, and he's like, no, you still owe me a 10-second car or whatever. Just like Fast and the Furious.
Just like Fast and the Furious, yeah.
He still has to atone and find redemption, even though he saved all their asses basically from the giant croc monster.
Yeah. He, she still calls him an apostate, which of course is a person who has renounced their religion or political beliefs or principles, and essentially is shunned by the community that they came from and has left them. And, she reminds him that he removed his helmet, and worse, he did so willingly. So it wasn't even like he could have like begged off, but he admitted to all of that, which happened in Book of Boba Fett. So, and that episode that's on like the space station with Bryce Dallas Howard is so good. Like it's so good. I just wish it had been that episode as the first episode. I know that's just not possible, but I just, sigh.
Yeah, I did really like that episode. That was where we got like probably more of the sort of Mandalorian like lore in this show than like anywhere else, or these two shows rather.
Yeah.
But that was a good one.
And I think that it's really important to point out that, like, based on what he's doing, which is that he's seeking guidance from a parental figure, that is the archetypical thing we needed to know, that he has reverted from an archetype perspective. He's now not really a hero again. He hasn't really grown. He's kind of back to where he was at the end of the first season.
Yeah, like the episode that you just referenced with like the Ring World and Book of Boba. He's got the sword, he's got Excalibur, but he doesn't have Grogu, and so he goes running back to his original community, and he's sort of doing the job that he was doing before the Grogu quest.
And even now we see that he's reverted because he's reliant on the armorer for acceptance and direction. And so being reliant on a parental figure means that you're not a fully realized hero. You're more in a maiden stage from an archetypical perspective, or more like young adult. Like he's a dad, but is he doing all the things that he needs to do? No, he kind of acts like a teenager.
Yeah, and like Rey had like Han and Leia, but historically, that's a really dangerous place to be in Star Wars, is like that adolescent looking up to the parent, because you really typically think of Palpatine, Snoke, or Obi-Wan's failure, quote unquote, if you want to look at it that way. And like, what did Luke experience to get him out of that phase? Well, literally the death of his parental figures. Yeah.
And death is not necessarily required. Sometimes it just has to be outright rejection. And previously, he hasn't really had a chance to reject the armorer, who is his mother, for a lack of better term.
Yeah.
He is the parental figure in his life who has given him all of his knowledge.
Yep. Yeah. She's like, there's no vulnerability to her yet. We don't know who she is. Like, if we are ever going to learn that, we haven't seen her face, and she's sort of just, there's not a lot of like grace there. Like, if you tell her what she wants to hear, then maybe she'll be like, this is the way or whatever. But most of the time, she's disappointed.
Although she's sending him on quests, she is preventing him from growth.
Yeah,
right? She's a threshold guardian, and that's often parental figures. So a threshold guardian is somebody like a dragon or a parent, or somebody that stands in the way of you experiencing and going on a journey for transformation. He thinks he still has to do things the way the rest of the community that he grew up in would do them.
Yeah. Chapter 4, Cara Dune was like, you can do anything you want. You can like retire and marry this beautiful woman here, and your kid can like grow up and have a happy, normal life. And he's like thinking about the armor, basically like, no, I have to keep my sort of goddess mother
happy,
at peace.
Yeah. And so he talks about how the creed speaks of redemption, and that he's willing to do this, right, to make her happy. So he shows the glass inscription that was given to him by some Jawas who had been to Mandalore. The glass is there, the inscription, which is in Mandalorian. And the Redditor, General Anubis, actually looked at it and immediately knew that it was actually a Bible quote from the King James Bible, from Exodus. And it's the part where it talks about the plague of locusts that comes to Egypt with Moses. So, and they shall cover the earth, that one cannot be able to see the earth, and that they shall eat the residue of that which is escaped, and which remaineth upon you from the hail, and shall eat every tree which groweth for you out of this field. So it's the plague of locusts. And it's basically showing symbolically that nothing can grow and you cannot nurture for fulfillment, which is effectively Mandalore, right? Under this like sort of destruction that has happened. But also on the microcosm, all of these little Mandalorians. They can't grow. Yeah. They can't be nourished. They can't transform. Yeah.
You say Plague of 1,000 Locusts, and I picture the TIE bombers from that scene of like the Night of 1,000 Tears or whatever. Like,
yeah.
So
the fusion rays have crystallized the planet. Well, like being under a helmet.
Yeah. Like they just can't seem to get rid of the damn Imperials, right? Like that's kind of the running theme of this era, is that we beat the Empire at Endor, but like, you know, they just keep coming back because you got all these different sort of splinter admirals and loyalists and the Sith Eternal and yada yada. So yeah, feels like they're continuing to sow the seeds of the First Order basically and the sequel era, but they sort of hinted at that even in like Mandalorian season 1 press, like they said that would kind of happen.
Yeah, I think so. They're tying stuff together.
Yeah.
Mando says, you know, I will go and bathe in the living waters of the mines of Mandalore. Oh goodness. Okay. There's a lot in here. So first of all, I've talked about mine symbolism a lot in my podcast, but mines sort of have 3 meanings in Star Wars. The one meaning is sort of the fabled lost mine. So you think of like the lost mines of Solomon, or like I'm a prospector and I have a map to a lost mine. That's the idea of like the folklore or fable of like there's a easy way to get rich, right? The easy path concept. It's very classic American Western idea, right?
Absolutely.
I've got the deed to a lost mine. There's the consumption and corruption concept of mines, which is, you know, that mines are used to dig into the earth and are often used by organizations or the empire to consume and corrupt both the people that work in the mines, but also the world and the land, right? So it's like in opposition of nature and balance because you're industrializing things that really shouldn't happen.
Yeah, sort of that colonial Britain stuff, yeah.
There's a third one, which is in a very recent episode of The Bad Batch. There's an equitable mine, which is that it is used with the people in mind, and there's some sort of equitability about the mine. The only other version of that mine that I've seen in canon is Bespin. So we now have 2 versions of that, which this is none of those. This is the lost mine, or this is the first one, which is the fabled lost mind idea that there's something hidden secret in the mind, being the living waters. It's underneath it, right? Underneath it means deeper in the subconscious.
And when you say like Bespin, are you saying like a mine that benefits the whole community?
Yes. And that is actually like the mine itself is like not technically a mine. It's like gathering the gases that are there because there's like a renewable way the gases are there. So it's not even like harming.
Yeah. There's like those giant floating like creatures like
and they like fart
like,
and then they collect the gas and then
like the mine
weird.
Seems not to harm anything basically.
Or like it's in balance with the population and more people it's not being used in a consumptive way that only benefits a particular group or person. That's the key. Okay. Living waters. Let's talk about living waters. This is our third Christian reference in a very short scene. Living waters refers to non-still or dead water. So moving water, rivers, there's a flow to it, right? And the idea is that Christ is the living waters of Eden, i.e. the flow of the purity of the promised land Eden flows through him and is given to people through his words and through the Grail and blesses things, right? What is the Grail in the show?
Well,
We just talked
Grogu,
about
right?
it.
So
Yeah, it's Grogu.
like, to me, I always go back to this passage where Yoda is like, I think it's where he's lightsaber fighting with Palpatine in the episode 3 novel. And he calls him like an avatar of green, the color of life or something like that. He goes real poetic with the Yoda passage. And that always stuck with me, that it's no accident that Yoda is green and so is his lightsaber. That's and they're using that here with the crystal being green and everything you just said as well.
And so he says, if I can bring proof that I've bathed in the living waters of Mandalore, and then we hear Grogu coo, and the armorer looks directly at him, and she agrees. Okay.
Yeah, like. In my notes, I sort of put the way she was talking about the living waters is very sort of like mithril in Tolkien, right? That kind of sacred substance, but also
it's supposed to be like the elixir, right? Like that is the elixir of the story, which is that secret thing that you can bring into yourself and transform, and then you can bring back to the community, and the community can grow.
Mm-hmm.
And transform. Okay. So what's really cool about the water of life is that it actually flows between opposites in alchemical symbolism. So masculine to feminine, life to death. And it's like saying this is the way or the third way or the way in between things. Isn't that cool?
Yeah. And also like the crystal, it's reminiscent of a Kyber crystal, which is very important in the sort of canon Disney era of Star Wars, because we know that there was this legendary ancient Jedi, Tar Vizsla, who wielded the Darksaber, and he was both a Mandalorian and a Jedi.
And there's like a balance between the two. Yeah,
makes Grogu very important in that way. I mean, well, if we want to say he's a Jedi. Yeah.
Like we might get Din actually becoming Jedi-like.
Right. Yeah.
And then Grogu becoming more Mandalorian. I don't know. Or just they balance each other out and we experience a sort of alchemical union between the two of them.
Sure. Yeah. Like a symbolic dyad, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Which, I mean, examples of alchemical union very, very briefly inside of Star Wars. The kiss between Anakin and Padme in episode 2. Vader's hand and Luke looking at Vader's hand in episode 6. Kylo and Rey in the throne room in TLJ. Kylo and Rey passing the lightsaber back and forth in episode 9.
Good stuff. Yeah.
All right. So she agrees. She's like, yeah, go ahead. I guess this is the way. If you can do the impossible, go ahead.
Yeah, she's just kind of like, knock yourself out. Yep.
Yeah. Go die on the poisoned planet. And they travel through hyperspace on his magical space horse or motorcycle. And this moment is breathtaking.
So good. It might be the best scene in The Mandalorian to date. It's gorgeous. We have Grogu kind of looking around and like hyperspace in general is gorgeous, and using stagecraft, the volume, to create it and to have it come off the puppet and make it feel live and like tangible was just such a beautiful choice. The lights, it was such a cool effect. And you see like this moment is so gentle, and you see the Purgle, like the big one, show up next to him, and he sees it. And it's like Grogu's calling them because suddenly they're all around him. Oh, interesting. Okay. They sort of gather.
They came closer to him.
Interesting.
They flowed with him. It was like a flow, like they're going in the ocean or something together.
Yeah, I did a little Googling and Wikipediaing because to me, Purgles, I just think of Rebels and season 4 especially. And
I don't know that there's many like the space whales. They haven't showed up very often. Just then.
Yeah, which is cool because. For all kinds of reasons, but apparently like in Star Wars lore, like Purgles basically, because they had the ability to travel through hyperspace, that inspired the development of hyperdrive travel like in the galaxy. And so, I'm thinking about like the way Rebels season 4 kind of evolved Star Wars with like the world between worlds and like Ezra Bridger sort of like hurling himself through time in a weird way, like into parts unknown, right? Like, you know,
expands Star Wars in such an interesting and weird way.
Yeah. And like Grogu is sort of this like eternal baby who represents like the distant future that, you know, and so it's like this interesting parallel of like Ezra and Grogu into like the, you know,
and
presumably the era of like Rey's Jedi Order or whatever.
Yeah, there's definitely like a connection to the natural worlds that both him and Ezra had, right? This connection to animals and the magical child sort of realizing that you're part of something bigger than you even realize. That's also like a message for the children in the audience too. Like this really does create a sense of wonder. It would be really cool to see it on a big screen, truthfully. And sort of be immersed by it. And it's almost overwhelming to him. And so Grogu like crawls through his little like whatever hatch and crawls into his dad's lap. I love this so much.
Yeah. It's very, just peaceful, like dad and baby moment. And I don't know. It's reminiscent of like if you took a kid to like an aquarium and he's like looking against the glass at the fish. And just that kind of, in my notes, I said like that awareness, I guess. You know,
like there are things I've never seen and maybe will never understand about the world.
Yeah, the unknown and also like maybe that recognition of like, oh, I'm a part of this weird universe that has hyperspace lanes and giant whales
and like Joseph Campbell talks about it as the great mystery, right? That's what drives us to keep on asking questions. The great mystery. They quickly arrive at Navarro, and I love the shot of the community from sort of the atmosphere and them coming in because you can see how much green there is.
Yeah. Used to be very like sort of gravel.
And like dark and like there was kind of like cloudiness to the community too, but it was clear, and you can see it's thriving from a societal perspective. The cantina has been changed into a school. There's music. There's people laughing in the streets and enjoying themselves. There's creation and artistry. This is the effect of the elixir being brought to the community.
Yeah. With Grief's character, it's kind of like that Western idea that like law and order is like a good thing. And like, you know, the good sheriff comes into town and like everybody's safe forever and ever because thank God for him. But
there isn't a lawman currently. That's also really interesting, right?
Yeah, he doesn't. Yeah, he calls himself what the magistrate.
The magistrate, but he doesn't even like have like a current marshal.
Right. True.
Right. And we see, of course, IG, the statue of him. And Grief Karga shows up and Din's like, Magistrate Karga. And he's like, that's high, Magistrate Karga to you. And you see his like cape with the little cape droids that are holding up his cape to not get dirty. I'm obsessed with them.
Very king-like.
Well, there's a certain amount of like, I don't know, excess maybe?
Yeah.
Like there's a certain amount of like, this is teetering on like, where is the down to earth actions?
Right.
You know, like I don't know. There's something in this.
Yeah. We don't see like the inside of that school. I don't think. We just sort of hear about it and he's just kind of.
Yeah, we saw the school in season 2. Grogu went there and ate his like space macarons.
Oh, that is the same school. You're right. Well, I thought it was pretty rude that IG-11 got a statue and Quill didn't, for the record.
I mean, fair.
I immediately thought, like, you know, come on now. He played a role, too. He made IG the hero that he was. But anyway, I digress.
Stay mad, I guess. I don't know. But no, it shows kind of like how important, you know, Navarro has become. He talks about how this is now an official trade spur of the Hydian Way. The Hydian Way is like a really interesting, it's like a hyperspace route that almost cuts the galaxy, like, I don't know, top to bottom. And it's the equivalent of like the Silk Road in sort of older European times or medieval times, and Route 66, like something like that, where along this route, there are places where people need to refuel their ships. It's easier for them to get to. Something about hyperspace travel that is only explored kind of ever so briefly is that you kind of have to go along ways that are people know. Like it has to be in your data bank that you can travel this and everybody knows the Hydian way. And also trade locations are sort of set up along it because it is easier to travel this way. That's kind of one of the things.
Yeah, it's sort of established in like A New Hope and Solo as well that like you just need that nav a computer, right? And like I guess the Nile had a different way of doing it, more of like a magic pirate way, but it's kind of fun. But yeah, I think that the Hydian way has been like one of the oldest like little bits of lore that I've seen cropping up in books like as long as I can remember. So another example of Favreau's kind of old school approach to things, like he wants to honor kind of like the oldest bits of Star Wars, you know, and then also throw in bits of Episode 9. Like he does have a big picture appreciation.
Yeah. So Grief offers him a parcel of land. So this feels very like Old West, you know, like here's a parcel of land, become my marshal. And you won't just be like a dude, you'll be landed gentry and you can take care of your weird frog boy. His name is Grogu. Okay, whatever. That was great.
Yeah.
But like landed gentry also implies sort of like knight. Like you're going to be a landed knight and it's going to be your job to protect this village.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah, kind of like a lord or a count or something, right?
Yeah. And like in that, because you have that sort of place, you're responsible for taking care or protecting the people around you. They are quickly interrupted because of pirates. Mm-hmm. They still want to drink in the school.
Weird flex.
It's a weird flex. What did this say to you, this whole situation?
I think it's just a total like power thing, right? It's just like, we own this place. You might think that this is your community and that it belongs to everyone, but it belongs to Swamp Thing, you know? So
yeah,
the captain.
I really loved the line, "You paid us for murder and mayhem inside these doors."
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It sort of indicates that, and this is a really interesting thing. So yeah, you can heal the community, but until you have to keep on going, right? You can't just stop at your own insular place. You have to keep on going because this is now a shadow. Yeah, they're the ones that live just outside of your community, but they used your community too. And this is something that hasn't been healed, hasn't been repaired, hasn't been brought the elixir yet.
Yeah. Like it's like a symptom of, capitalism and greed and kind of the frontier mentality, I guess, like that idea of just, they're not like socialists or communists where they want to just like eat their fair share. They want to eat everything.
Yeah, but you can't stop with just like transforming yourself. You have to transform. You have to help transform those around you too, right? You can't just stop with just the community because the community, once you start to transform it, is now a bigger community because it's now whatever it touches. Mm-hmm. Right. And so those shadow aspects, the things that you haven't dealt with, the fact that he used to pay people to murder and produce mayhem is now coming back to Grief.
Yeah. It's like an interesting theme that comes up in like crime fiction or like Better Call Saul or, what have you. Like
you're never quite done.
Yeah. Like, you think that like you're this guy, but like I've seen who you really are. And so, you're always in the game and you always answer to someone who you don't want to answer to.
This is always like the challenge of sort of like atonement and redemption is, or even change, right? Like I'm trying to transform and change for the better. There's going to be things. You think about smoking, right? As an example, you wanted to quit smoking. Well, like there's going to be temptation out there to return to your old ways. And that's how it works, right? There's always going to be something that's going to remind you of how things used to be. And Grief reacts in violence. threatening him, and the pirates react back, and there's more violence. So this is a foreshadowing.
Yeah, this is like the lighting of the fuse of some conflict.
Yeah. And also like, hey, maybe this should have told you really shouldn't have reacted in this way, Grief, and this is going to come back to bite you, Din.
Yeah.
And he
could have
feels
said something like, what can I do for you type of thing instead, maybe.
There could have been a different solution than a violent one. And Din is going to have to... Din feels a connection with this community. He is part of this community, so he feels responsible for it too.
Yeah.
That's important too, even if he refuses to be the marshal. I love how like the lines that the Mandalorians say are always like, I can't be your marshal. Like, I got this thing I got to do. It's just always very like on the nose. I don't know.
I'm on a quest. Yeah.
I got a quest to do. I got a fetch me quest to do.
Yeah.
Or I got to go bathe in this thing. But first, this is like a side quest. He's like, I really need my droid friend back.
Yeah, I loved this whole thing.
Why do you think he needs IG-11?
Well, I did have some like sort of stray thoughts about like perhaps IG would have like a video recording of that would somehow get Mando in good graces with the armor, but it's probably something a lot more simple and symbolic than that. More like the fact that this droid is really good at protecting Grogu, and is willing to sacrifice his life to do that. The implication of this sequence is like this droid has a soul. Not just any droid will do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I totally agree with all of that. That like there's an aspect of, he knows if he needs him to take care of Grogu, IG-11, or the one that he knew would. It also sort of represents for him redemption is possible.
Oh, right.
Because Quill helped him become not a murder robot.
Yeah, and Mando like began the series like in the death trade, basically. Yeah, that's good call. Like
he is like a surrogate him if Grogu needed him.
Yeah.
Right? Redemption is possible. And what do we see immediately? IG-11 has reverted to murder man.
Favreau loves the Terminator movies. I think he like comes back to those again and again in these series. Like Michael Biehn was in an episode. This is like a scene straight out of the original Terminator, and then even
the crawling across the floor and like grabbing things. Yeah,
totally the climax of the original Terminator.
I am utterly surprised to see IG-11 back again, but it works thematically with the reversion, with the how Mando has reverted. It works well with what IG-11 represents. He's like Quill's son, and so having him along on the quest is like help from Quill and also his redeemed friend. I love it. Yeah.
It's a total surprise, and I like the fact that he's like, trying to resurrect a character that we thought had just been kind of, exited stage left. Like, I don't know, it's just a good feeling. And
maybe it was all the crap he got from Rick Famuyiwa when it's like, well, why did you need to kill IG? Well, it needed to happen. They're like, but why?
Oh, in one of those Disney Plus specials, do they say that?
Yeah.
I love when they push back against John, because I think John is a really warm, good human. Yeah. But I also think that it's nice when people challenge his instincts too.
Like, I don't think you get it, dude. Like, we didn't need to kill off IG-11.
Yeah.
It's sort of like the name thing. It's sort of like including, the Mandalorian body doubles in the credits. Like, this guy's learning.
Yeah, I think so. And
it does sort of feel like WTF season 2 of The Mandalorian, though.
Yeah.
Like, why? Okay. But whatever. I love seeing that IG-11 might be coming back.
Yeah, I mean, I
so
loved him.
Happy.
Yeah. He was amazing. And I have always just kind of loved like droids in Star Wars.
For him, though.
Yeah, I don't know. He's gonna have to get his own ship. Yeah.
Can't they fold up? Like, can IG droids like fold up into like capsules? Sort of.
That sounds right. I mean, like if you like, they don't have much like surface area. They're like bones. So That sounds familiar. Maybe that was in like an animated thing at some point.
And honestly, Taika, like back in the show, will just bring so much life into the show.
Yeah, he's really fun.
Yeah, and
like
he just
clearly
adds like just so much random to it.
Yeah, like he's got this perfect mix of like reverence for Star Wars and also like he's Taika Waititi, so he's a little bit crazy, and that's kind of what Star Wars needs, you know? It's like
it needs weird, right? Like it absolutely does. Yeah. So he's like, I can't just deal with any droid, even though everyone's telling him like, no, dude, this dead droid. He's like, okay, we'll take them to the Ancillians, who are of course the droid builders. That was Babu Frick in The Rise of Skywalker. I don't know that we have had a confirmation that any of these people is Babu Frick, but they're tiny little creatures, and I hate to tell you this, with the exception of like Yodas and Maz Kanadas, tiny little creatures tend to not live too long. But prove me wrong, Star Wars. I loved this scene so much.
Yeah, I did too.
I'm ashamed to admit it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I said in my notes, like, I liked this more than like the Babu Frick scenes in 9, just because I don't know, probably because you have a little more time to breathe in like the puppetry and like the beauty of the design, and the goofy voices are just so fun.
I love how Grogu like goes after him and like squeezes, like tries, like,
yeah,
it's so fascinating to see Grogu with creatures that are smaller than him, and it's kind of like a kid with a cat, or a kid with a smaller kid, like, or a baby, like a kid with a baby. Like, you're like, no, don't, careful, no. And like, 100%. I've experienced this as a parent. Have you with your kids?
Yeah, when I watched the episode for the second time, I completely pictured my son wrapping both arms around my dog and being like, you know, Sammy, and kids just want to, you know, give a big hug and all that. So, yeah, it worked for me. Like, you know, it's very twee and goofy, but I'm okay with that. I'm a pro Porg, pro Ewok kind of guy. So
I'm pro cute anything in Star Wars. Yeah.
Yeah. Fair.
And also, like, just the Grogu moments in this episode just are so good. Like him spinning in the chair and like grabbing the space skittle. Like, yeah. But they're like, okay, if I get you a new chip, whatever the chip is, memory chip,
you'll
fix
like
it. Yeah. So he leaves and they get in the spaceship and they fly off, and Karif is like, okay, bye, weirdo.
Yeah. Like, he really likes that droid.
He really likes that droid. But like, he's also like, this is my weird friend who's incredibly useful. But, you know, and then we get the sort of line from, it was in one of the trailers, being a Mandalorian is not just learning how to fight. You also need to learn how to navigate the galaxy, because you never know where you might be headed next. Okay. What did you think of this in context?
People clowned on that line big time in the trailer, which, you know, sometimes people just want to clown on Star Wars, and I've been there. But to me, it's like a symbolic thing where, you know, you're not talking about like flying a spaceship, right? You're talking about navigating life, you know, and the world, which is, I think Ryan's been really good about saying that with like Rey and Kylo, and like, and you know, probably Finn and Poe, like the whole cast of The Last Jedi, this idea that they're basically adolescents. And then, you know, the idea is that they're being challenged in all these ways so that they can navigate the world as a fully realized adult, you know, maybe the way Luke does in Return of the Jedi, or by the end of it, you know.
Any time that a spaceship leaves into space, it's entering into the unknown. We don't know where we're going to go. We could go anywhere, right? And Grogu is sitting on his lap, right? What did we talk about Grogu being? The elixir. This is his joy, his love, his compassion. It's all contained in front of him. And he is showing these things to Grogu, but they're also in reminding Mando that this is what's important to him, and it helps him navigate the galaxy.
Yeah.
I often talk about how, you know, George talks about when you seek joy, you know where you're heading. It is the thing that helps you navigate your own journey. This is a very symbolic scene. I was shocked.
Yeah. And like Din like has never looked like happier or more content than when like Grogu crawls into his lap. Like it's very good. Well, and
like he
it's
seems
probably
relaxed.
It's probably Brendan.
Yeah,
there.
probably. Yeah.
But yeah, it's more like a it's like he's just at peace. Which in Star Wars, we're not often at peace.
We get many of those moments where like Grogu is front and center, like where his heart is. It's really interesting and really beautiful too. I really love like this also sort of gives the feeling of being an errant knight on his horse, with his like small child on his lap or in front of him, and like, yeah, we're going to go on random quests. We need this hyperspace map, but really that doesn't matter because we're about to be attacked, but Grogu is still on his lap. So he has his direction.
Yeah.
And they're attacked by space pirates.
Yeah, it's like this big, sort of got like a hammerhead bow, I think. And then it's got like tiger stripes on it, right? It's kind of a cool ship.
Those ships were cool. Yeah. What was the name? It was Pirate Vane was his name.
Vane was the original guy.
Yeah. And then we had Goran Shard, who sort of is like a salad version of Blackbeard.
Yeah.
or like seaweed. It was really cool. I thought he was great. But of course, thematically and symbolically and like archetypically, he represents a predator who is, of course, danger lurking for what's in store for the community next. And of course, our Mandalorian. So this is unfinished business. It was a cool scene. I was really into the flying around the asteroids and the hunting and being hunted and kind of all of that.
Oh yeah, it like made great use of like all the kind of the music cues that we kind of have heard throughout like Mandalorian season 1 and 2, but used them in the context of like a fairly complicated space battle that we've not often seen in these shows, except for like Andor when what's his name is cutting apart those ships.
Which part?
Oh, sorry. The part where Andor's mentor is like, you know what I mean, flying through.
Oh, when he uses the like kind of laser beams and he cuts apart the TIE fighters.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Luthen Rael. Oh my God.
Yeah,
I can't believe Luthen. There we go.
Yeah, Luthen. Yeah.
It's been a long few months. Okay.
Yeah. So like, how do we know that Din has reverted other than the fact that he's relying on parental input more and more? He has a predator. He has somebody who's chasing him. Interesting. That's a big sign that you've reverted out of your heroic stage. You're back to being an adolescent maiden. I'm picturing like Bill Nighy or whoever it is in like Pirates of the Caribbean with like the squid face and stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Davy Jones or something. There's somebody who's going to be hunting him now, right? Interesting. And they head to Calvella, which this was from canon before. It's been mentioned, I think so. Yeah. Like before, and it is, of course, is a Mandalorian world. And there's a cool Mandalorian castle there. Very cool. It's sort of like Castle Kaladin from Dune. It's a castle against the sea. There was like rain, like the helmet was like all splattered with like raindrops, or like maybe it was just the sea mist. Yeah. I thought it was like raining. It felt very lonesome. Yeah, I have lonesome in my notes. The hall is empty. It's, this brutalist architecture. Bo-Katan is like, she looks powerful, but she's miserable. Like, all is not well for Bo-Katan. I thought she would be drinking. Yeah. I joked on Twitter, like the Bella New Moon gif where she's like sitting in the chair and like all 4 seasons like play out in front of the window or something. She looks miserable and she's not amused to see Din, flaunting the Darksaber, but she doesn't have like that drive and purpose that she had when we sort of met her in The Mandalorian. Like she had a plan. She knew what she was going to do. She's like, I got to get the fleet and I just need the Darksaber. And, but he's like, Bo-Katan, I'm here to join you. It was practically a proposal. It was really fascinating. Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah? You like
All
that?
right. I'll go with that.
Yeah. I mean, but she's like, nah, I got nothing. What do you mean?
Like, she invited him to this party, right? Like, this was all her. Like, we're going to retake Mandalore. It's going to be amazing. Like, you and Boba.
Yeah, he's willing to be subservient to her, certainly.
Yeah, and we don't see like Casca and the dude here. Like, we don't see, like, she is alone symbolically here. And
no, literally too.
Yeah, literally. Other than that, like, blue protocol droid maybe or something.
Yeah, just you and your droid. But yeah, the stolen fleet is being manned by the different factions that have gone off and that she had gathered previously.
Yeah.
And she kind of pushes the blame back on him, and like him just happened to being part of a weird cult. He's like, the children of the watch left long before you did. And like this really ties to this line of like the factions fractured and shattered our people long before this. Mm-hmm. It's really like there's a language being used, and sort of what happens to us psychologically as both people and as a community is we end up being sort of sliced up as we deal with traumatic things that have happened to us, and even just growing is traumatic. And part of the role of healing that trauma is to reintegrate the different pieces of ourselves and kind of help heal, push ourselves back together. And we're getting that language both on the micro level and also on the macro level with like that this people is shattered and fractured. Like, so everything is all apart from the Mandalorian perspective. And I think it's really cool. It wasn't like the episode I was expecting, but a lot of really interesting symbolism and setup was done that I'm looking forward to seeing payoffs for.
Yeah, it felt like very confident and purposeful, even though like, people would say like, oh, it wasn't eventful, but I don't know. To me, it felt like it knew what it was doing, which is kind of all that I ask from a episode 1 of a TV show. I liked the imagery of like the curse and the poison. And so it's like this idea that, things are bad on that planet now, but like we can go and, we're going to do something about it.
Yep.
And like sort of everything that we kind of knew about season 3, I think, to the extent that I was looking into like, okay, what's going to happen? It just seemed like it was like Babu Frick's going to have a cameo. Bo-Katan is going to have some kind of agenda that's going to come into conflict with a lot of people, probably. Yeah. And that's kind of the extent that I knew of it. And of course, you've got like Rebels 2 coming in the form of Ahsoka and like all these other shows at some point, theoretically. So, I don't know. There's sort of things brewing. Thrawn is out there and, yet more Mandalorians. So
I carry about Dadalorian and Baby show. So
I know. The same way.
I like how it's left. I like it. I wonder if he's going to try to convince her to like get her poop in a group and join him. Be like, what harm could it do? You can always come with me.
Let's go down in the mines. Nothing bad will happen down there. It's perfectly safe.
The mines are of course, a symbol of going into the underworld, right? You're going in to try to find that missing thing, that thing that you need to find in the darkness that will help you become more whole.
Yep.
And, it's interesting that it's the living water underneath the mines. So it's even deeper. And there's a tie to water and association with being rebirthed, right? Because the underworld is also the womb of the earth, right? So you're going to be reborn in the earth through the living waters, which, it's all there. Mm-hmm. Very, very plain language, Jon Favreau, but sometimes requires a little bit of a MC translation for the average viewer to be like, okay, he's talking in weird language again. I'll translate. Yeah. It's fine.
She gives him sort of the location, which is like the one proper noun I didn't like write in my notes, but it starts with like an SY something. And And then she says that it's under the civic center, which to me is like reinforcing that idea of like, okay, the Mandalorians have to unite and not, fight under each other. But
right. Because civic is like the community.
Yeah, I think of like the city hall where everybody comes and shouts at each other until like a solution is reached.
They have to come together.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good. I like it. I'm excited for next week.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the episode.
Right.
Good team of creators and writers on this thing. So, or directors. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Alex, where can people find you if they are looking for you before next week?
Probably just fooling around on Twitter at Alex J. Kane, Kane.
Awesome. Take care, everyone. We look forward to having you back next week. Cheers. Thank you for listening to What the Force. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host. Our music is provided by Christy Carew for What the Force. We have a Patreon at patreon.com/whattheforce. We would like to thank all our patrons, especially those who love and are obsessed with What the Force: Melody, Night Huntress, In Wild Space, How Rude, Anna Perez, Neil, Christian Luca, Josh Johnson, Scott C., and Susan. Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube or leave a 5-star review on iTunes or other pod apps. It helps people find the show. Check out our other channel on YouTube, What the Fiction. You can connect with us on Twitter at WT Force Show, What the Force Podcast on Facebook, and our website, whattheforce.ca. We also have a Discord. Links are in the liner notes. Feel free to reach out and start a conversation. Cheers.